9 years of silence, one phone call, and a list of demands typed up like she was ordering off a menu. That's what my mother brought to my front door the day our story went public. 4 items on a folded piece of paper, as if she were owed a refund on a decade she'd thrown away herself. She had no idea that piece of paper was about to become the most expensive mistake she ever made. 9 years earlier, I stood in my parents' living room in San Jose and told them I was marrying Linda. My mother didn't yell. That would have almost been easier. She set her coffee cup down, slow and deliberate, and chose the cruelest words she could find. "You're going to do this to us?" My father didn't even look up from the television. That told me everything about where he stood. Nowhere. My sister Tiffany, 20 years old and still terrified of our mother's voice, caught my eye for half a second, then stared at the carpet. "If you marry that woman," my mother said, "don't call this house again. That woman has a name. It's Linda. I don't care what her name is." My Aunt Yvonne stood up like she'd been waiting for her cue. "Think about your children," she said. "I am thinking about them," I told her. "I'm thinking they'll grow up in a house where their parents actually love each other, which is more than I can say for this one." My mother picked her coffee cup back up. Conversation over. Ruling delivered. I stood in the driveway afterward with my keys shaking. 26 years in that house reduced to fine print I hadn't known existed. Welcome back to Dad's sweet revenge. Every villain in these stories thought they were the smartest person in the room. They were not. I married Linda 4 months later. My business partner Donovan stood up as my best man, since apparently blood only counts when it's convenient. Linda's whole family came. Her mother cried good tears. Her father shook my hand like he'd already decided he liked me. My side of the aisle had 11 people, 8 of them friends who showed up because they loved me. That empty half of the room was the last time my family would ever get to stand beside me for free. I met Linda at a barbecue, arguing good-naturedly about whether store-bought sauce could ever beat homemade. 6 months later, I brought her home, naively certain everyone would feel what I felt. I was wrong, and the silence that followed never softened. It calcified. Here's the thing about being disowned. It forces you to figure out who you actually are without anyone's permission. Linda had grown up on her grandmother's recipes, hot sauces and pepper jellies sold off a folding table at the farmer's market. I was hauling jars out of my car on weekends while working a sales job I hated. Some Saturdays we sold out by 10. Other Saturdays we sold 4 jars in 6 hours to people who just wanted to know if it was actually spicy. We built Sullivan and Grady, her maiden name proudly on the label. 6 years in a rented commercial kitchen, 16-hour days, maxed-out cards, months where we ate the product we couldn't sell instead of groceries. Donovan came on early, walking away from a stable accounting job because, as he put it, he wanted to be around people who didn't play it safe. When Costco picked up our first line, the 3 of us sat in our kitchen and cried like idiots. 3 years after that, a consultant named Archer helped us navigate an acquisition offer from a national food conglomerate. She was blunt from the first meeting. Don't sell for less than it's worth, and don't hang on if the offer is actually good. The first number was low, she told us to walk. The second was better but still short. Donovan ran the projections until his head spun. Linda just kept making the sauce, reminding us that people weren't buying spreadsheets, they were buying trust. $11 million. You sure about this? Archer asked the day the paperwork came through. I looked at Linda. 9 years of vinegar, pepper seeds, and stubbornness distilled into a signature. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. 2 weeks later, a business journalist ran the story everywhere, from farmers market to 11 million. Our faces were suddenly on screens across the country, including, inevitably, the living room I grew up in, 20 minutes from my own front door. My mother watched that segment 3 times before she picked up the phone. Along the way, there'd been milestones I used to think might crack her silence. Our daughter's birth, Linda's stubborn chin, my father's exact hazel eyes he'd never get to notice. I sent an announcement anyway. Nothing came back. Our son, 2 years later. By then I'd stopped sending anything. Linda and I built our own family instead. Her parents, Donovan and his wife Crystal, as honorary aunt and uncle. My childhood friend Shane teaching our daughter to ride a bike in our driveway. It wasn't the family I'd expected. It was better, because every person in it had actually chosen to be there. Then the call came on a regular afternoon. An unsaved number. Something made me answer. Gregory. A voice I hadn't heard in 9 years, and it still tightened something in my chest. I saw you on the television, you and Linda. That's her name? 11 million, Gregory. That's what they're saying. A long pause. We should talk, as a family. Funny, I said. I don't remember you using that word in about 9 years. Don't be difficult. I'm your mother. You were. Then you chose not to be. You made that decision, not me. I'd like to come by, this weekend. Every instinct told me to hang up, but some small, curious part of me wanted to see exactly how far she'd go. Fine, I said. Come by. That single word was about to set off the most satisfying chain of events of my life. That night I told Linda at our kitchen table, the same table where we used to count crumpled dollar bills. She wants to come to the house. After 9 years. After 11 million, I corrected. What do you want to do? 2 versions of me sat at that table. One wanted to slam the door in her face. The other, the one that had watched my mother's absence shape every holiday. My kids grow up without a grandmother. My wife quietly carry the blame for a fracture she never caused. Wanted something permanent. I want the world to see exactly who she is, I told Linda. Not hear about it secondhand. See it. You want to record her? Every second. And then everyone who ever wondered why my own parents weren't in our wedding photos finally gets a clear answer. Linda made me promise it wasn't about proving something to her, that it was about finally telling the truth where she couldn't twist it smaller. I promised, and I meant it. I called Shane, my childhood friend turned video producer. You want to do what? Wire the living room? He installed 4 camera angles and 2 hidden audio pickups, feeding a secure offline hard drive in my home office. Once this hits the internet, he warned, there's no taking it back. I know, I said. I've had 9 years to think it through. I looped in Archer too. When I explained the plan, she went quiet, then said, That's not advice I usually give, but I respect your wife. And frankly, a woman like that deserves the exposure. Here's exactly how we handle it. Donovan didn't hesitate either. Some debts don't get erased just because a decade flew by. She had 9 years to make this right privately. Instead, she chose to do it loudly, with a list of terms, in your own living room. Let the world see the choice she made. The day arrived. I sent our kids to Linda's sister Crystal's house, wanting them nowhere near the blast radius. Linda refused to hide. This affects me too. I'm not disappearing while your mother sits in my house. She's going to say something ugly, I warned. Let her, Linda said. I survived 9 years of her silence. I can survive 20 minutes of her voice. At exactly 2 o'clock, her car pulled into the driveway. She sat behind the wheel a full minute before stepping out, like she was rehearsing lines. She looked older, gray hair, a stiffness in her walk. For one fraction of a second, the boy who used to run to her with a scraped knee felt a pang of sympathy. Then she knocked, and the first words out of her mouth were, You've done very well for yourselves. No hello, no apology, just an appraisal, like an agent inspecting a property. She nodded once at Linda, an administrative box checked, and we sat. My mother in the armchair, Linda and I on the couch, 4 hidden lenses trained on all of it. 11 million, I said. That's the number. That's wonderful, Gregory. I always knew you had that drive in you. Funny, you didn't seem to think I had much of anything 9 years ago. Her jaw tightened. That was a different situation. The situation didn't change, Mom. Our bank account did. She reached into her purse and unfolded the paper. My stomach dropped even though I'd known it was coming. First, she read, like a corporate restructuring proposal, it's only equitable that a portion of this wealth secure your father and me for retirement. Family takes care of family. I said nothing. Let the microphone catch every syllable. Second, I'd like us to schedule a formal family portrait, all of us together, to put the past behind us publicly. It would mean a great deal to your Aunt Yvonne. Third, I think it would be highly appropriate for you to fund your cousin's restaurant. He's been struggling, and with your connections now. And number 4, I cut in. She looked up, unfazed. Fourth, I expect an apology for the disrespectful way you spoke to me in front of your aunt 9 years ago. I let the absurdity sit in the room, 9 years of exile, a boycotted wedding, grandchildren whose voices she wouldn't recognize, and her demands were a check, a photo op, a handout, and an apology from me. "Let me make sure I have this straight," I said. "You disowned me for marrying my wife, cut off all contact for 9 years, and now you walk into my home demanding a retirement fund, a PR stunt, money for my cousin, and an apology from me? There's no need to be difficult." "It's not difficult. It's crystal clear. You didn't come because you missed your son. You came because you saw an 8-figure number on the news and realized your silence was a bad investment. That's entirely unfair. What's unfair is my children growing up without a grandmother because of your pride. What's unfair is my wife sitting here showing you basic decency after you refused to say her name for a decade. This list is pathetic." Her face flushed crimson. "I am still your mother." "You were. You forfeited that title the day your love came with a racial qualification." "You always did love drama," she muttered, folding the paper as if composure could save her. Linda hadn't spoken. Now she did, quiet and lethal. 9 years ago, you sat across from me for 10 minutes before deciding everything you needed to know about my worth. You looked at my skin, made your choice, and vanished. I don't expect you to understand a mother's protective instincts. "I understand them perfectly," Linda said. "I just don't respect yours. And I want you to understand something. I never once asked Gregory to choose between you and me. He chose, because your prejudice made anything else impossible." My mother's mouth opened to fire back, but I was already standing. "We're done here. It's time for you to leave. You'd throw away your own flesh and blood?" "Money didn't corrupt me," I said, pointing at the door. "It bought me the one thing you never gave me, freedom to exist without your approval. I'm the exact same man I was at 26 in your living room. You're the one who decided that life wasn't worth knowing. I'm just delivering the bill." She went pale, clutched her list, and left. Her sedan disappeared down the block. The house went quiet. "Are you okay?" Linda asked. "Ask me in a week," I admitted, and let the adrenaline drain out of me. That night, Shane and I reviewed the footage. 4 angles, clean audio, no edits needed. "This is annihilation," he said. "Once this goes live, there's no pulling it back. This is as real as it gets." "She made it real the day she valued her prejudice over her son," I told him. "I'm just making sure the world sees the consequences." Archer's rollout was surgical. We pitched it as an exclusive follow-up to the acquisition story the same outlet had already covered. Not a random upload buried by an algorithm, but a narrative reversal audiences were primed to devour. 11 minutes. No music, no effects. Just my mother reading financial terms off a folded page, ending on the line that would trend nationwide. "I'm just finally showing you the receipt." We published on a quiet Tuesday. Within 6 hours, the view count had outpaced our original business feature. Comment sections dissected her every expression. Strangers wrote in, a woman disowned under nearly identical circumstances, thanking me for giving voice to something she'd never been able to say out loud. A young man who said the video gave him the courage to cut off an abusive parent. Donovan called the next morning, laughing that our web traffic had tripled overnight. A national talk show booked us within the week. When the host asked if I regretted exposing her, I didn't hesitate. My mother enjoyed 9 years of privacy. She used it to erase herself from her grandchildren's lives without a word. The moment she walked onto my property with a list of demands instead of an apology, she forfeited narrative control. I didn't expose her. I stopped hiding her choices. That line became the clip that defined the whole cycle. Strangers online started using 9 years of privacy as shorthand for conditional family love. Linda's parents called in tears, proud of her strength. Her father told me simply, "You protected your wife and stood your ground, son. That's the measure of a man." It was the closure my biological family never gave me. Then Tiffany texted, "We need to talk." On the phone, her voice shook. The things she demanded, she actually read those to you? Word for word. I can send you the raw footage. A long silence. "I always hoped she'd wake up and apologize on her own," she said. "I guess I was naive." "You were 20 and terrified of her," I told her. "You didn't build that wall. You just didn't have the tools to knock it down yet." She asked to meet Linda properly, to be an aunt to my kids. I told her they'd love her. I meant it. My Auntie Vaughn took the opposite path. calling 2 days later, furious. She can't even step outside. People recognize her at the market. That's a direct consequence of her actions, not a tragedy, I said. Family doesn't do this to family. Family doesn't disown a son over his wife's skin color. Family doesn't vanish for a decade and then hand him an invoice the second his business sells. I didn't ruin anything. I handed her the bill. She hung up on me. I didn't call back. Weeks later, Shane sent me a post from an old neighbor, recalling how quietly exclusive my mother had always been about which kids were welcome at her table. It clicked into place. The 4 demands weren't a departure from her character. They were its purest, most unfiltered expression, one I'd spent a childhood excusing. My cousin reached out too, mortified he'd been used as a bargaining chip he never asked for. He was building his restaurant slowly, on his own terms, rather than take $1 with her strings attached. I respected that more than I could say. It was the same truth I'd learned 9 years earlier. No amount of money or approval is worth your soul. My father never said a word. Not before, not after, not through any of it. His silence answered a question I'd carried for years about whether he secretly disagreed but lacked the spine to say so. A man's character isn't the quiet thoughts he keeps to himself. It's what he stands for out loud. He'd chosen, every time, to stand for nothing. The last call came from my mother 3 weeks after the video peaked. You need to take that down. It's ruined your father's standing. No reflection, no accountability. Just another complaint, dressed as an order. No, I said. You had 9 years to be a mother and chose pride every time. Now the world sees the receipt. I'm not taking down a frame. I am still your children's grandmother. You're a stranger to my children. Grandmother isn't a title you demand when your bank account runs low. It's earned with humility you've never shown. We're done, Mom. She never called again. The footage kept circulating for months, cited as a case study in conditional love and the cost of boundaries. Sullivan and Grady's visibility only grew. Archer joked my mother had accidentally run the most lucrative marketing campaign in food history. Tiffany became a fixture at our barbecues and birthdays. When she tried to apologize to Linda, Linda just hugged her and told her she wasn't responsible for her mother's sins. Donovan and Archer stayed close, still sending me articles about the fallout, with the same note. Still can't believe you pulled the trigger on that. I smile every time. My mother still lives in that same San Jose house, blinds drawn, according to Tiffany, fully aware her neighbors know exactly who she is, and I feel no guilt about it. This was never going to end in a tearful redemption arc. She had a decade of chances, a wedding invitation, 2 grandchildren, every avenue a person could ask for to offer grace. And every time she chose her own ego, that list of demands wasn't a mistake. It was the truest summary of who she'd always been, finally caught on camera for the world to see. A few evenings ago, Linda and I sat on the back porch watching our kids chase each other through the grass. She asked if, knowing everything now, I'd still hit record. Every time, I told her, without a second of hesitation. The only thing I regret is that it took $11 million for the world to believe the truth about her prejudice, that she walked away from her own son over something that never should have mattered. Sometimes I still think about that living room 9 years ago, the slow placement of the coffee cup, the quiet verdict passed before I'd even finished my sentence. I used to carry real grief over what that night cost me. Now I see it clearly. It didn't cost me a family. It exposed one that never truly existed and cleared the path to build a real one. A wife who never asked me to shrink myself. A sister who found her courage 9 years late and spent every day since making up for it. A partner who bet on us when no one else would. A friend who wired a house with cameras because he trusted my judgment even when it scared him. A consultant who believed the truth deserved an audience. And 2 children who will never know what it feels like to be measured and found wanting by the people who were supposed to love them unconditionally. That's the inheritance I actually care about passing down. My mother wanted a photo to put the past behind us, because a photo is easy. A single frozen frame you can show the neighbors as proof nothing ever happened. But it was never going to be that easy. Not after 9 years of exactly that kind of easy silence. Some doors, once you close them, are meant to stay closed. I closed mine. I have never once looked back. If you like this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more real, raw, family-centered stories.